The sky burned crimson as the Xeraxian scout ship descended over New Mexico's vast desert landscape. Dr. Lyra Krolax pressed her sensory tendrils against the ship's observation window, her 3 hearts racing with a mixture of scientific curiosity and professional skepticism. Humanity was supposed to be unremarkable, just another primitive species barely understanding its own potential. Outside, the small town of Silver Creek seemed oblivious to the alien vessel hovering silently above. The lone mechanic, Jack Harper, wrestled with a rusted pickup truck's engine, his hands moving with practiced precision. Across the street, Maria Rodriguez graded papers in the local high school classroom, her red pen dancing across student essays with a focused intensity that suggested worlds beyond these 4 walls. The ship's advanced sensors mapped the town's intricate details: heat signatures, communication networks, energy consumption. Every measurable parameter told a story of apparent ordinariness. Mrs. Eleanor Chen tended her carefully maintained garden, her weathered hands gently pruning roses that had won local competition awards for 3 consecutive years. To an untrained eye, she was just another retired resident enjoying her golden years. Preliminary scans complete, chirped the ship's artificial intelligence, its synthetic voice betraying a hint of clinical detachment. Species classification: developing. Technological level: primitive. Threat potential: minimal. Dr. Krolax wasn't convinced. Her tentacular appendages shifted slightly, a nervous gesture that translated to deep contemplation among her species. Something about the humans felt different. Their energy patterns were unusual, complex, interconnected in ways that defied standard galactic classification. A young programmer named David Santos worked remotely from his home office, simultaneously debugging a complex software project, video chatting with his mother, and monitoring a community support network for local small businesses. His screen displayed multiple complex systems, each managed with an ease that suggested total comfort with technological complexity. The Xeraxian ship's sensors captured thousands of simultaneous human interactions, a teacher explaining complex scientific concepts, a group of engineers collaborating on renewable energy solutions, children playing, their imagination creating entire universes from simple objects, farmers using sophisticated agricultural technologies, artists creating works that challenged perception itself. Minimal threat potential, the AI repeated. Lyra's research notes suggested otherwise. Each scan revealed layers of complexity that contradicted the initial assessment. These humans didn't just exist. They transformed their environment continuously. They solved problems with a creativity that bordered on the miraculous. At the local community center, a workshop brought together retired engineers, teenage students, and working professionals. They were designing water filtration systems for regions with limited resources. No hierarchical structure limited their collaboration. No traditional barriers of age, profession, or background restricted their collective imagination. The ship's observation deck hummed with quiet tension. Dr. Krolax knew her colleagues would laugh at her growing suspicion. Humans, a potential galactic concern. They seemed so ordinary. And that was precisely what made them extraordinary. As the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple, the town of Silver Creek continued its routine. People moved, worked, loved, created. They had no idea an alien ship studied their every movement, trying to understand a species that didn't realize its own potential. Dr. Lyra Krolax made a decision. Her initial report would require careful crafting. These humans were anything but ordinary, and the galaxy was about to discover just how remarkable they could be. The ship's AI continued its emotionless assessment, but Lyra watched and waited and wondered. The Silver Creek mine was an old wound in the landscape, a testament to generations of hard work and community resilience. When the ground shifted and tons of rock collapsed, trapping 16 miners deep underground, the world seemed to hold its breath. Jake Rodriguez received the call while finishing a welding job at his workshop. Without hesitation, he grabbed his emergency kit, kissed his wife goodbye, and was out the door in minutes. Other men and women from the town were already mobilizing, a complex dance of coordinated action that seemed to happen without formal organization. Sarah Chen, a high school physics teacher, arrived at the site with her students. Instead of keeping them back, she turned the rescue effort into a real-time problem-solving exercise. Smartphones came out. Calculations were made. Local engineers, retired miners, and teenage students worked together as if they were a single organism. The Xeraxian observation team watched in absolute fascination. "This defies all standard rescue protocols," muttered Dr. Krulax's research partner. "They lack specialized equipment. They have no formal training in large-scale emergency response." But the humans didn't seem to care about their limitations. Jack Harper, the local mechanic, began modifying construction equipment on the spot. A crane became a support structure. Hydraulic systems were reproposed. An old mining truck's lifting mechanism was redesigned in real time using nothing more than basic tools and collective problem-solving. Underground, the trapped miners weren't waiting to be rescued. They had already begun creating their own survival systems. Using minimal resources, broken flashlights, spare clothing, a single emergency radio, they managed their oxygen, mapped potential escape routes, and maintained group morale. Maria Rodriguez coordinated communication efforts. Her background in linguistics and community organizing proved more valuable than any formal emergency management training. She created a support network that tracked every detail, managed family communications, and provided real-time information to rescue teams. The Xeraxian ship's sensors captured something unprecedented. These humans weren't just responding to a crisis. They were transforming the very concept of emergency response. Local restaurants began preparing meals for rescue workers. A nearby school became a coordination center. Amateur radio operators created a communication network that rivaled professional emergency services. Teenagers delivered supplies. Elderly residents provided critical local knowledge about the mine's historical layout. 12 hours into the rescue, something remarkable happened. The first miner was pulled to safety, not by professional rescue teams, but by a collective effort that involved nearly the entire community. Jake Rodriguez's improvised support structure, designed using calculations made by Sarah Chen's students, proved more effective than standard rescue equipment. "Just doing what needed to be done," Jake said, wiping sweat from his forehead. The last miner emerged after 16 hours underground. Instead of showing signs of severe trauma, the group demonstrated an incredible sense of unity. They joked. They supported each other. They immediately began helping with rescue cleanup efforts. Dr. Krulax's initial report had been wrong. These weren't just ordinary people. They were extraordinary in their ordinariness. The Xeraxian observation team realized something profound. Humans didn't see themselves as heroes. They simply saw themselves as people doing what was necessary. No individual sought recognition. No one claimed special status. They had saved 16 lives through nothing more than collective creativity, determination, and an absolute refusal to accept impossible. As night fell over Silver Creek, the community gathered. They didn't celebrate. They simply shared a meal, supported each other, and prepared for the next challenge. The most terrifying thing about humans, they believed this was completely normal. Dr. Lyra Krulax's research lab buzzed with an unusual energy. Holographic displays mapped human achievements, each data point challenging everything the Xeraxian scientific community understood about developmental species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez appeared on one screen, a linguist who spoke 12 languages, currently driving a taxi in San Francisco. By night, she translated complex scientific papers. During her morning commute, she was developing an algorithm to improve language learning technologies. Her taxi became a mobile think tank, conversations with passengers sparking ideas that would later revolutionize communication technologies. Another screen showed Marcus Chen, a former mechanical engineer turned sustainable farmer. He had redesigned irrigation systems using principles from quantum computing, creating agricultural solutions that could transform food production in challenging environments. When asked about his work, Marcus would simply shrug. "Just trying to solve a problem," he would say. The patterns were becoming impossible to ignore. A teenager in Kenya developed a water filtration system using locally available materials. A retired physicist in Japan created a breakthrough in energy storage. An artist in Brazil designed a communication interface that bridged technological and cultural gaps. They didn't see themselves as extraordinary. They saw themselves as people solving problems. "Look at this," Dr. Krelax told her research partner, pointing to a complex web of human interconnectivity. They don't recognize their own potential. The Xerexian databases struggle to categorize human capabilities. Traditional classification systems broke down when confronted with human adaptability. A musician could design complex software. An engineer could become a community organizer. A teacher could develop agricultural technologies. Sarah Chen's high school physics class became a perfect microcosm of human potential. Students weren't just learning. They were actively solving real-world problems. One group developed a low-cost prosthetic design. Another created an app to help local farmers optimize crop yields. A third team worked on a community health tracking system. The students didn't see these as exceptional achievements. They saw them as homework assignments. Dr. Krelax discovered something even more fascinating. Humans had an almost pathological inability to recognize their own limitations. Where other species would see barriers, humans saw challenges to be overcome. Where most would calculate risks, humans would simply act. A global network of amateur scientists collaborated on projects that rivaled professional research institutions. Open-source platforms allowed collective problem-solving that defied traditional hierarchical structures. Knowledge wasn't hoarded, it was shared, improved, transformed. The Xerexian research team tracked hundreds of simultaneous human innovations. A community college student developing more efficient solar panels. A group of retirees creating a transportation solution for rural areas. An online collective solving complex mathematical problems. "They don't know how extraordinary they are," Lyra whispered to her research partner. "And that makes them even more dangerous." The most terrifying aspect wasn't their individual capabilities. It was their collective potential. Humans didn't compete. They collaborated. They didn't see differences as barriers. They saw them as opportunities for innovation. Global challenges became collective projects. Climate change wasn't just a scientific problem. It was a challenge to be solved by everyone. Space exploration wasn't limited to government agencies. It was a collective human dream. Dr. Krelax made a critical notation in her research log. Humans weren't just a developing species. They were a transformative force. And they had no idea how remarkable they truly were. The Cortac battleships descended like a metallic nightmare, blocking out the sun over multiple continents. Their advanced weaponry hummed with destructive potential. Massive energy cannons charge. Invasion protocols activated with mechanical precision. They had conquered 100 civilizations. Humanity would be nothing more than another footnote in their galactic expansion. What they didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for potential threats in ways no one could predict. In Silver Creek, the community center transformed within minutes. Amateur radio operators became communication specialists. Local farmers became a sophisticated logistics network. High school students hacked alien communication frequencies faster than the invaders could encrypt them. Maria Rodriguez, who had coordinated the mine rescue, now led a regional communication network. Her experience managing complex community responses became a critical tactical asset. She transformed local government buildings, schools, and community centers into decentralized command posts. The Cortac's first mistake was assuming a centralized military response. Humans didn't have a single point of defense. Every community became a potential resistance cell. Teenagers used gaming skills to disrupt alien navigation systems. Retired engineers developed improvised defensive technologies. Artists created camouflage networks that confused alien sensors. Jack Harper's welding workshop became an impromptu weapons modification center. Construction equipment became defensive barriers. Vehicles were rapidly modified into mobile communication platforms. No standard military doctrine could predict their approach. In Tokyo, a group of programmers launched a global counterintelligence network. In rural Brazil, indigenous communities used traditional knowledge to create undetectable communication systems. In the Australian outback, farmers used their understanding of landscape and environment to create defensive strategies. The Cortac discovered something terrifying. Every human was a potential warrior. Every human was a potential strategist. Dr. Lyra Krulax watched from her observation ship, documenting the most unprecedented defensive response in galactic history. The humans didn't fight like a military. They fought like a living organism, adaptive, interconnected, impossible to predict. Community centers became command posts. Libraries transformed into communication hubs. Schools became strategic planning centers. No single approach defined their resistance. A group of musicians developed a communication system using complex audio frequencies that disrupted alien communication protocols. Grandmothers created supply networks that moved resources faster than any military transport system. Children became critical intelligence gatherers, their social networks providing real-time information. The Cortac's advanced technologies became increasingly useless. Every time they adapted, humans found a new approach. Every strategy was countered with something completely unexpected. Sarah Chen's physics students developed sensor jamming technologies using household electronics. Local makerspaces became emergency production centers. Online communities coordinated global resistance efforts in real time. When the Cortac commander demanded surrender, the response came from everywhere and nowhere. Not a military transmission, but a global network of resistance that couldn't be traced, couldn't be stopped, couldn't be predicted. "We're just doing what needs to be done," became the unofficial global motto. The invasion lasted 3 weeks. The Cortac retreated, their technological superiority completely neutralized by human creativity, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. They had come expecting to conquer a planet. They left understanding that humanity was something entirely different. The most terrifying thing about humans, they didn't see themselves as heroes. They just saw themselves as people protecting their home. The detention facility was designed to break the most resilient prisoners. Advanced psychological manipulation technologies lined its sterile walls. The Cortac interrogation specialists were legendary across multiple star systems for their ability to extract information from any species. Maria Rodriguez sat in the center of the interrogation chamber, completely calm. Her interrogator, Sub-Commander Rex, approached with a complex neural interface designed to break down mental barriers. Decades of successful interrogations had proven its effectiveness against hundreds of sophisticated civilizations. Maria smiled. The first hour confused the interrogator. Instead of resistance, she began telling a story about her grandmother's journey from a small village in Mexico to becoming a renowned environmental scientist. A tale of persistence, hope, and unexpected opportunity. Zrex's neural interface began to malfunction. The human wasn't resisting. She was connecting. Each story became a complex web of human experience that defied standard psychological analysis. Her narrative suggested something the Cortac had never encountered, a fundamental belief that every challenge could be overcome. "We're not special," Maria would say. "We're just people trying to protect what matters." Those words became more dangerous than any weapon. Other captured humans displayed similar patterns. They didn't break. They didn't provide military secrets. They transformed the entire concept of interrogation. A former teacher discussed educational philosophies with her captor. An engineer explained sustainable design principles. A chef shared cooking techniques that challenged the aliens' understanding of cultural exchange. The detention facility became something entirely unexpected, a place of cultural exchange rather than information extraction. Dr. Lyra Krulax reviewed the interrogation logs with growing fascination. Human prisoners were changing their interrogators more than the interrogators were changing them. They approached each interaction as an opportunity for understanding, not conflict. One soldier, Jack Harper, spent hours discussing mechanical engineering with his captors. He showed them how humans solved problems, not through force, but through creativity and collaboration. By the end of their conversations, the alien guards were more interested in learning than controlling. The psychological warfare was entirely one-sided, but not in the way anyone expected. Humans didn't see their captors as enemies. They saw them as potential partners, potential friends. Every interaction became an opportunity for connection, for understanding. The Cortex psychological warfare experts were trained for resistance. They were prepared for anger, for defiance, for strategic misdirection. They were not prepared for empathy. Dr. Rex's final report became a turning point in galactic diplomatic history. The human capacity for understanding seemed to transform everything it touched. They didn't fight to destroy. They fought to protect. They didn't seek revenge. They sought resolution. Maria Rodriguez's interrogation became a legendary case study. When asked how she maintained her composure, she simply shrugged. "Everyone has a story," she would say. "Sometimes people just need someone to listen." The detention facility became something entirely unexpected. A place of learning. A place of connection. The most terrifying thing about humans: they could turn an interrogation chamber into a classroom. They could transform conflict into understanding. And they didn't even realize how extraordinary that was. The global workshop began as a simple online collaboration. Scientists, engineers, artists, and students from every corner of the planet connected through an open-source platform that defied traditional research paradigms. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the real-time collaborative display with a sense of wonder. What started as a challenge to develop clean energy technologies had transformed into something far more profound. A teenager in Kenya proposed a breakthrough in water filtration. An retired engineer in Japan refined the design within hours. An artist in Brazil created a visualization that helped identify potential manufacturing challenges. A community college student in Australia suggested a novel material application. The Xerexian research team couldn't comprehend what they were witnessing. Traditional scientific development followed a linear path: hierarchical structures, controlled research environments, proprietary technologies. Humans did something entirely different. They shared knowledge freely. The Energy Project became a template for global problem-solving. Climate challenges, medical research, space exploration. Nothing was off-limits. Researchers didn't compete. They collaborated with an intensity that suggested a collective consciousness. Sarah Chen's high school students were developing prosthetic technologies that outpaced most professional research institutions. They weren't motivated by profit or recognition. They were solving problems because the problems existed. Dr. Lyra Krolax's research logs became increasingly frantic. Humans approached technology not as a tool of power, but as a means of solving collective challenges. An open-source medical research platform developed treatments faster than any government-funded program. Amateur astronomers discovered planetary systems professional researchers had missed. Community makerspaces became innovation centers that rivaled top research institutions. The most remarkable aspect wasn't the technology. It was the approach. Humans didn't see technological development as a competition. They saw it as a collective human journey. A farmer might contribute to quantum computing research. A musician might solve a complex engineering challenge. A retired teacher might develop a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Jack Harper's welding workshop became a community innovation center. Local engineers, students, and professionals collaborated on projects that transformed multiple industries. They shared tools, knowledge, and possibilities. The global network expanded exponentially. A problem identified in one part of the world would have collaborative solutions within hours. Language barriers disappeared. Cultural differences became sources of strength rather than division. Technological patents became collaborative documents. Research became a global conversation. Innovation happened at the speed of human connection. The Xeraxian observation team realized something profound. Humans didn't develop technology. They grew it, like a living organism. Adaptive, connected, impossible to control. Dr. Rodriguez's energy project became a turning point. The proposed clean energy solution could transform global infrastructure. But what amazed the alien researchers was how it was developed, not by a single institution, but by a global community that didn't even realize how extraordinary they were. "We're just trying to solve a problem," became the standard response to questions about their innovations. They didn't see themselves as revolutionaries. They just saw themselves as people doing what needed to be done. The most terrifying thing about humans, they could transform the entire concept of technological development without even realizing they were doing something remarkable. And they were just getting started. The first human ambassador arrived without fanfare. No grand military escort. No displays of technological might. Just Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a linguist who had spent her life studying communication, wearing a simple suit and carrying a collection of books. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. Representatives from hundreds of advanced civilizations expected a typical diplomatic presentation. Territorial demands, show of technological superiority, requests for trade agreements. Elena began by telling a story. She spoke of Silver Creek, of the mine rescue, of community resilience, of collective problem solving. Her presentation wasn't about human achievements. It was about human potential. The Xeraxian delegation watched with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Dr. Lyra Krolax knew this moment would change everything. Each council member received a comprehensive data package. Not a technical report, but a living document. Stories of human innovation, community projects, collaborative solutions to global challenges, personal narratives that revealed something far more powerful than any technological specification. Jack Harper's Community Innovation Center, Sarah Chen's Student Research Projects, Maria Rodriguez's Communication Networks. These weren't just examples. They were a blueprint for a different way of existing. The council members realized something profound. Humans weren't seeking to conquer. They were offering partnership. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities for collaboration. Where traditional diplomacy demanded rigid protocols, humans proposed fluid, adaptive approaches. "We're not here to compete," Elena explained. "We're here to solve problems together." The translation algorithms struggled to capture the nuance of her words, the emotional depth, the genuine belief in collective potential. Some council members were confused. Others were terrified. A few were inspired. A representative from the Quantum Collective challenged Elena. "What makes your species believe you can contribute to galactic development?" Elena smiled and shared a story about her grandmother, a woman who immigrated with nothing, who worked multiple jobs, who supported her community, who believed that every challenge was an opportunity. The story wasn't about individual achievement. It was about collective possibility. Dr. Lyra Krolax watched the diplomatic exchange with growing excitement. Humans weren't presenting themselves as a superior species. They were presenting themselves as potential partners. The data package included unexpected elements, not just technological innovations, but cultural practices, educational approaches, community-building strategies, artistic expressions that challenged understanding of communication. Some council members wanted defensive strategies. Others sought technological exchange. A few were simply trying to understand this species that didn't fit any known galactic classification. Elena's final presentation was a collaborative global project solving multiple environmental challenges, not a proposal, a working model, already implemented, already showing results. The most remarkable aspect wasn't the technology. It was the approach. Humans saw the galaxy not as a place to be conquered, but as a community to be understood. When asked about their diplomatic strategy, Elena's response was typical of her species. "We're just trying to help," she said simply. The Galactic Council would debate this encounter for generations. Some would see it as a threat, others as an opportunity. The most terrifying thing about humans, They didn't see themselves as special. They just saw themselves as people willing to work together. And that made them absolutely extraordinary. Dr. Lyra Krolax's final report became a landmark document in galactic cinesociology. The massive holographic display in the Xeraxian Research Archives pulsed with complexity, mapping the unprecedented trajectory of human development. 10 years had passed since the first human diplomatic encounter. The galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Collaborative research stations orbited distant planets. Human teams worked alongside species that had once considered them primitive. A teenager from Brazil might be solving atmospheric regeneration challenges with researchers from 3 different star systems. An engineer from Nigeria could be developing communication technologies that bridged entire galactic regions. The most remarkable aspect wasn't the technological advancement. It was the approach. Humans didn't seek to dominate. They sought to understand. They didn't compete. They collaborated. Dr. Elena Rodriguez now led the Interspecies Communication Institute. Her team didn't just translate languages. They translated cultural experiences. Every communication was an opportunity for deeper understanding. On a research station near the Andromeda Reach, Jack Harper worked with engineers from 7 different species. What began as a technical challenge had become a celebration of collective problem-solving. They weren't just building technologies. They were building relationships. Sarah Chen's educational models had revolutionized learning across multiple civilizations. Her approach transformed education from a hierarchical system to a collaborative exploration. Students weren't just learning. They were discovering together. The Galactic Council meetings had become something entirely different. No longer a place of rigid diplomacy, they were now dynamic problem-solving platforms. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable were now approached with a uniquely human perspective of collective possibility. Dr. Krolax's research revealed a profound truth. Humans didn't see themselves as special. They saw themselves as part of a larger community. Every challenge was an opportunity. Every difference was a potential strength. Maria Rodriguez's communication networks had transformed galactic information exchange. What began as a local community support system had become a galaxy-wide platform for collaborative understanding. The Cortac, once aggressive conquerors, now worked alongside human teams on multiple research projects. Their entire approach to existence had been transformed by human interaction. Technological innovations happened at an unprecedented rate. But it wasn't about individual achievement. It was about collective potential. Dr. Lyra Krolax made a final notation in her comprehensive report. The most terrifying thing about humans remains unchanged. They believe they are ordinary. They have no idea how extraordinary they truly are. A young student on a distant research station would summarize it perfectly during a cross-species symposium. When asked about human achievements, she simply shrugged and said, "We're just doing what needs to be done." That sentence became a galactic philosophy. The humans who had transformed the galaxy would never fully understand their impact. They would continue to see themselves as ordinary people solving ordinary problems. And that was precisely what made them extraordinary. In community centers and research stations, in small towns and massive space habitats, humans continued to do what they had always done. They solved problems. They connected. They believed in collective potential. They had no idea how remarkable they were. And that was their greatest strength.